Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.
And you're very welcome along to this week's Friday Night Racing. It's Ger and Johnny here with you every Friday afternoon alongside Johnny Ward. Johnny, how are you getting on?
Hello, Ger. How are you getting on?
I'm very well. Friday Night Racing is, of course, brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie or follow the Twitter account at HRI Racing. Johnny, when do you've been doing a bit of work on this over the last week or so. When do you expect us to be able to watch racing in Ireland again, even if it is behind closed doors?
Yeah, this is obviously an evolving situation, Ger, and as of the Department of Agriculture yesterday, which was, outlined by the Taoiseach in terms of the phases this day last week, which seems a long time ago now for racing and a long time ago for anyone, I suppose, in lockdown, but June 29th remains the figure. But Horse Racing Ireland issued a statement last night, which was its first statement since, in a while anyway, I suppose, its first statement since Leo's press conference last Friday. So in 6 days, and Horse Racing Ireland issued a statement suggesting effectively that the government was open to some sectors of the economy coming back maybe a little bit earlier than the roadmap, and Horse Racing Ireland will engage the government on that. So that would be the hope, I suppose, in racing, that it will be able to make the case. And I mean, the case for me might be a little bit biased, but I think it's overwhelmingly strong in terms of racing behind closed doors, coming back before June 29th. And I'm confident that June 29th would be a pretty bad situation for a lot of people in racing, and you can see why racing would hope that it would come back before that.
What are the kind of options in terms of when that might actually be?
Yeah, well, the government, racing was initially hoping that it would be the 18th of May, which I think would have been by far the most logical return. Because it's behind closed doors and so forth. I don't understand May is very likely at all at this stage, but 3 weeks prior to the 30th would be the sort of round about the 8th, 9th of June. So that would be probably a scenario that racing would be hoping for at this stage. And the difficulty for trainers, obviously, Ger, is that they've left horses out in the field that would otherwise have been in training. So the summer jumps calendar has been absolutely thrown up in the air because of the horrific coronavirus situation in this country. And the flat trainers, obviously, who very, very briefly came back at the end of the season, they've kind of had to keep the horses on the go, but not quite at 100%. But it's particularly the trainers we'll say Gavin Cromwell for the month of April, he left 30 horses out in the field who had come back in with a view to summer jumping. Now he needs to kind of know when racing is to come back. In other words, I can't train a horse if I don't know what date we're returning. So that's the difficulty. And obviously you have an awful lot of owners who are availing of the government's $350 a week, an awful lot of owners whose businesses are in jeopardy. So the ownership situation is a real concern, and this is a massive challenge for racing, even in the context of sport, in the context of a global pandemic that has taken so many lives and is going to inevitably result in I suppose another worldwide recession. This is a really difficult time for racing, and I think racing has behaved very well in terms of trying to get itself back up and running behind closed doors. And bear in mind, behind closed doors is far from ideal for racing, but that's the best we can hope for at the moment.
Yeah, and the other thing is that they actually have experience of exactly what behind closed doors would look like. So that 10 days or whatever it is that they got the opportunity to test out what the systems would look like is going to stand them in good stead for being able to hit the button and go quickly when the word comes through from the government that it's okay to go again.
Absolutely, yeah. I suppose my two main passions in life in sport are the League of Ireland and Irish racing. And in the League of Ireland, there's really marked kind of disagreement and no real, consensus on the best way forward, because it's effectively a totally different thing to racing. And like Gaelic games and so on, it's a team sport involving players, involving fans. In the Gaelic game situation, lots of fans. So it's hard to come to a consensus there. I have heard virtually no dissenting voice within the racing game in terms of behind closed doors, because I observed one of the meetings myself. I was entitled to go as a journalist. There were hardly any people there. It was, say, over the course of 5-6 hours, there'd be 400 or 500 people there. The jockeys and the trainers, essentially, they came, they stayed in the car if needed be, they left when their job was done. And, racing's suggestions and proposals in terms of the sort of rules for its own return, in terms of social distancing and all that, are actually quite quite pronounced, and I think racing has done a really well-meaning and well-researched job in terms of observing social distancing and doing nothing that would endanger the community. But like other industries, it realises that, you know, it can't go on forever like this, and the race courses are, you know, under huge duress because of this. And when you think of Punchestown, you think of Fairyhouse, and you think of Galway, which is planning to go behind closed doors. This is cataclysmic stuff, and I'm proud, to be honest, of the way racing has looked at this, because it has said that we will only do this consistent with government guidelines, and it has behaved accordingly as well, and has, in my view, has behaved very well on it.
Okay, let's move on, because racing has been going on behind closed doors in Australia, and our next guest has had one of the biggest wins of his entire career. Shane Jackson, good evening to you. Good morning to you as it is here. How are you getting on?
Yeah, great. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so not a bad week for you.
Great week. Yeah, it was huge. We have our annual Warrnambool May Racing Carnival, which is our equivalent to Cheltenham, and yeah, to win the big one was a huge buzz.
Give me the name of that place again.
Warrnambool. It's they call it a city. It's a big town, really. It's about 3 hours south of Melbourne. I'm from here as well. We've lived here since we moved, and it's the local carnival. But it's in jumps respect, it's the biggest one of the year. And yeah, it's normally 3 days. It was down to 2 days this year because of behind closed doors and the restrictions and what have it. So we had all the jumps jockeys there on the first day. Usually it's a mixed card every day. It's flat hand jumps. But just to distance everybody, we had 8 jumps races on the first day and then 8 flat races on the second day. I
had to Google whereabouts this city in Warrnambool, where that is, and I didn't realise, but it's like the very ends of the earth. It's the very southernmost tip of Australia. The next stop is Tasmania, essentially. So what is that part of the world like?
It's beautiful. Our winter, it's seasonal, you know, which is good for us. You know, you don't feel too far from home during the winter. It gets quite wet and windy, and that's the reason why we can have jumps racing down around this part of the world, because the tracks are soft in the winter. Yeah, and it can be quite miserable, but yeah, the summers are beautiful, and we're on the beach here, literally 2 minutes away from our front door. And yeah, we get beautiful summers and springs and summers, and yeah, we just get that maybe a couple of months during the winter where it can be a bit miserable, but as the climate goes, it's a lovely place, and it's a lovely place to live. And is the water warm in the sea? Is it that kind of like that kind of? No, it's Baltic.
Okay.
Even in the middle of summer, it's Baltic.
It's good.
Yeah.
That's the one thing that reminds you of home, Shane, I think.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah. We go down and we pretend to be Australians every now and then, and we jump in with a surfboard or a bodyboard and fail miserably. Us Irish aren't really built for it, but let me tell you, unless you have a wetsuit on, it's pretty cold any time of the year.
Tell us, why did you go to Australia in the first place? What was it that, as a jumps jockey, you thought, I'm going to go there and see what happens?
I suppose it was just circumstance of the times. Obviously, I had a few great seasons at home, was champion claimer, and I came down here on one of the jockeys tours. It's a long time ago now. It's probably 10 years ago now, or 12 even. And I came down with Nina Carberry, Katie Walsh, and Alan Cawley. The 4 of us came down with a great time. We all rode a few winners, and it was a super tour. And I got on quite well with a few fellas down here, and kept a few contacts, and never dreamt of coming back. I was asked when I was here would I come back, and things were still, I was just out with I'd just been champion claimer the season before, so the world was your oyster sort of thing. And then the next few years, I suppose, not that things quietened down, but I wasn't riding the same number of winners through numerous different things. A lot of lads like to blame it on injuries. I had a few injuries, but as everything sort of tightened up a little bit when the recession hit, and it was just becoming an effort to try and pay the bills, pay the mortgage, with just riding fees. Really, it was hard to make an earn. You were riding out on the promise of rides, driving all around the country, and it was getting to a stage where it was going to be redecide my career choices as such, and whether I went down another path to pay the bills. And we had Joseph at that stage, and he was just a baby, myself and Lauren, and things were starting to get tight, I suppose. And I think it was John Allen and Tom Ryan had made the trek down to Australia maybe a year previously, and I was keeping an eye on them, and they were having some success. And yeah, I happened to mention it to Lauren and said, do we give it a go? Because like in my heart, I didn't want to give up race riding. I knew it wasn't working financially, but it was still my main aim. It was what I wanted to do. And thankfully, Lauren was on board, and she was keen for an adventure. And we moved down here 8 years ago now, and we haven't looked back.
Did you go for a year? Was that the essential plan? Go for a year, see how it works?
No, well,
or did you?
Not really. We were in the situation where, because we had Joseph at the time, we couldn't do like most Irish do and come on a working holiday for a year and suss it out. We had to find a sponsor to sponsor us to come over here. So the plans were in motion probably a year before we ever came. And I found a sponsor out here that it was a sort of a stable in Warrnambool who had a few jumpers, and there was probably a lack of jumps riders down around here, and they were keen to get somebody with a bit of experience come and help them with both schooling them and riding them and all of that sort of jazz. And so they sponsored me to come down here. So at the start, there was probably 6 months of paperwork, but we came on a permanent visa to start with, and we sort of set a 3-year plan. We said we'll go down, we'll be homesick, obviously, we'll see how it goes, but we'll try to maybe 3 years, and if we don't like it, we'll come home. But look, we've enjoyed every minute of it. You obviously miss family and friends all the time, but it truly is a great place to live.
Has the homesickness eased, like as technology gets better and you can have Skype calls or Zoom calls or whatever it is that you're using, or does that make it worse? What's that actually like?
Oh no, it helps. It helps, of course. We try and either Skype of a Sunday morning here with the kids, Skype my parents or Lauren's parents, and all of our friends and that at home. If we're sitting up at night, we'll get on. There's all these things now. There's house party and Zoom and everything where everybody's trying to have their own parties at home. And that's one probably positive thing out of this whole COVID thing, that everybody's making more of an effort to touch base, and their lives aren't as busy maybe as what they always were. But no, look, we try and touch base with everyone. And homesickness, look, at home is where the heart is, I suppose. And we've been home a couple of times in the 8 years, but we're very lucky. Our family and friends have all made the trek over here several times. And I suppose it's maybe it's a bit of an excuse for people that might never have travelled to Australia to see the other side of the world. And I know it's a long flight, but it's been good, and we're very lucky that people have come to see us plenty.
Shane, I'm just interested in what you were saying there about the background behind your departure from Ireland, because I think you painted a picture that is very, very kind of familiar to an awful lot of jockeys in Ireland. And I suppose you could say really the majority of jockeys in Ireland are consistent with what you were talking about there in terms of the difficulty of getting regular winners, because it's very, very concentrated in terms of a small number of jockeys win most of the races. And you point out the recession there, and we're obviously in danger of a big worldwide recession again. But how difficult is it for, and I don't want to say a journeyman jockey, but a jockey who's basically struggling for a small part of the pie? And I'm sure you spoke to an awful lot of jockeys around that time who are in exactly the same boat. And how difficult is that mentally on a young jockey?
It's tough, because it's just the nature of the beast, I suppose. When you're a claimer, everyone wants to use you, and there's always a huge pool of top rate jumps jockeys in Ireland, and any one of them, if they got the right opportunities, could be top grade. And there's no point in anyone feeling bitter about it either. You're either you're in the right place at the right time, or you're that little bit better than everyone else, and you'll get to the top grade. But there's just it's looking back from here. It's unbelievable the quality of riders at home that are getting on well, but the quality of riders that aren't getting on as well as they should. And that's just sport, I suppose. But look, it was at the time. I never sort of get down on things and think, oh, poor me. It's what do you do to fix the problem? And that at the time, what I thought at the time, I was trying my best to, I suppose, rejuvenate how I was going, like as a claimer, and after a couple of quiet seasons, but financially it wasn't working. So what do you do? Do you struggle away and think, oh yeah, things are going to be okay, or do you just do something about it and pull your socks up? And like I said, we moved down here and we started fresh and went with a new outlook on everything, and just everything sort of just if you work hard and you want to succeed, you'll get there. It mightn't be at home. It might be in Ireland. It might be in England, or it might be in France, or for us it ended up Australia. And I think you need that mindset that no matter how hard things might be, you need to keep pushing forward to one main goal.
I suppose one thing that, throughout the coronavirus lockdown and all that, there's a lot of, talk. Not everyone is racing's biggest fan, and that's fair enough. There's some sports I'm not that mad on, but, racing, to my mind, which frustrates me, is you're talking about how difficult it is in Ireland. Do you think people understand enough just the quality of racing in terms of horsemen, horsewomen, and horses in Ireland? Because as much as jump racing is, it's hardly every country of the world is a big jumps racing place or whatever. Like, the quality in Ireland is something that I think maybe people don't understand enough, and just how good we are at this in terms of being a world leader. And you can now kind of compare that, because you've obviously gone to Australia, and you can kind of sort of compare the two in terms of the different jurisdictions.
Yep, you can't. There's things you can't teach, and I think it's whether it's bred into us or it's heritage. We just seem to be a great nation of where, I suppose, we all grew up with ponies in our backyard, or things like that. Whereas here, not so much. People go at it later on in life, and it's those sort of things. It needs to come natural. And like, I look back now and you see the stable yards you worked in over the years, and you would have had 10 or 12 top class riders and the same, ground staff. And we're just, in fairness, we're a great nation of horse people, whether it be breeders, trainers, jockeys, any members of the industry, and we're recognised worldwide for that. It doesn't matter where I've been in Australia, every stable yard has some connection with Ireland. They'll have Irish people working there, or foremen or jockeys or whatever it may be, but it doesn't matter what state you go to, there'll always be a few of us around.
You said for the carnival, the 2 days this year, there was 1 day of jumps and 1 day of flat. What's the comparative strengths of jumps and flat across Australia?
Well, the jumping is a minority here. We only jump in Victoria and South Australia, and primarily in Victoria. We only have it's about 80 jumps races in the season. It's pretty compressed for about 6 months, 7 months. And we don't jump through spring and summertime because the tracks just get too firm. And but that's okay, because our riding fees are very good. Our prize money is very good, and we have like I said, we have a busy 6 months of it, and then it's sort of we all have other jobs, we well, not other jobs, we all work in the industry, but it's not jumping's not all year round, but it can be a lucrative game if you're in with the right people.
You seem to be in with the right people. Talk to us about this race this week then. It's the biggest jumps race of the year, is that right?
It is, yeah. It's the one sort of that I'd earmarked since I came over. It's probably like comparing the Grand National Entry and the Gold Cup. And we have the Grand Annual at Warrnambool, and we have the Grand National Steeplechase at the end of the season in Ballarat. And I reckon the Grand Annual is probably more like your Entry Grand National, and the Grand National at the end of the year is more like your Gold Cup. This race that I won during the week, it's over 5,500 metres. With 33 jumps. I think it's more jumps than what they have in the national at Entry, even though albeit
you're even getting into the lingo of meters now. You've lost the Irish population.
We've all like, what? How long is 50?
What's a meter again?
Five and a half kilometres.
I know that.
Miles.
I can do that bit. How many miles?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's like 3.5, 4, just touching 4 miles, is it? Divide by 8, multiply by 5.
So yeah, in around that. But that's a big trek for here. You know, most of our races are 2 mile races. The majority of them are. We don't have the same quality of stairs as we do back home. So most of our races are 2 mile races. But yeah, the Grand Annual, like you say, it's about 3.5 miles, whatever, 3 miles 6, something like that. And lots of, even like the jumps obviously aren't as big as they are at home or whatever, but there's still 33 of them. They're sort of upright plastic fences. And yeah, you can brush through the top of them, but at the same time, they take a bit of jumping. And if a horse is to jump 33 times in a race, it's a fair test of stamina. But the track here at Warrnambool, it's a bit similar to maybe a cross country course at home. You know, we cross a road, we go up a paddock out the back, and you come down. The first time you turn left, there's a couple of doubles, you know, crossing roads and a few tricky jumps, and it takes a lot of riding, and it takes a unique horse to win it. So yeah, when I came here first, it was a race that I always had earmarked. I wanted to win, and I ran close a couple of times. So it was just great to take it off the list.
You referenced the horses kind of not having that many sort of staying type horses. Obviously in Ireland, you know, there's an amazing programme for your staying chaser right up to obviously winning the Grand National or the Gold Cup. But is it different in Australia? Are they essentially horses that were basically designed for the flat and ended up doing this, or is the kind of, I suppose, is the industry big enough over there for breeders to target national hunt racing exclusively?
No, 100%. It's flat horses generally. You know, because what do you do with your horse for the 4 or 5 months of the year where there's no jumps racing? So they've all generally had a flat career. But the quality, when I came here first, it was sort of your horses that were too slow for the flat would go jumping, and it was a lesser grade of racing, and you'd no riding them. You know, they weren't a high quality horse. You know, you still rode your winners because there were some horses that to win the races, but because of the prize money and the strength of the industry, the industry was in trouble probably 10 years ago, you know, with the anti-jumps racing crowd. They were sort of having a too much say, and there was a bit of worry about the industry going forward. But this last 7-8 years, especially since all us Irish boys came out, and, you know, there's competition is a great thing for any sport, and the riding ranks have gone from strength to strength. And also the horses, you know, there's been a boost in prize money, and now you have trainers like, you know, I ride a lot for Gay Waterhouse, and, you know, she's a Hall of Fame trainer, and now she's sending horses that have ran in Melbourne Cups jumping now. So when you've that sort of quality going jumps racing, it rises the quality of all the other runners, they have to compete. So it's really promising at the minute, and it's, like I said, it's going from strength to strength.
I mentioned obviously that racing is behind closed doors at the moment, so you didn't have a posse with you to watch it, but what you did have was a camera on your family. So here's your wife Lauren and son Joe watching the race at home. Have a look at this.
Picking them up, he's picking them up. Come on, Shane. Come on, Shane. Please. Come on, Shane. Go.
Him's a champion for a reason. He doesn't
Come on,
like
Shane.
getting beaten.
Come on,
He's
Shane.
half-linked to a blaze with one to jump. To the gold medal next. A blaze
Up and over. Come on, Shane.
goes
Come
over.
on,
Gold medal
Come
still
on,
the
Shane.
back.
Come on, Shane.
It's
Come on.
the Kiwi warrior. A blaze, the new kid on the block has gone through him though. 2 lengths gold medals trying to lift. By a bit of a lad, but we're seeing history here. This is 5 Grand Annuals for the favourite son Seamar. A blaze race clear for Turkey Legs. ZM can do no more. Gold medals there in a fight of their own. But it is a blaze for the Linda Living Waterfront Grand Annual by 6 lengths. 16 gold medals. They were brave, but they were beaten.
Here, that's class.
Put a lump in your throat, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would.
I'll bring a tear to his last eye as Robbie Mack texted me and said.
It's the commentary as well really encapsulates the jumps racing in terms of just how exciting it is, and I thought it was fascinating there the way you spoke. It was kind of like we brought a load of Irish over, and the Aussies are actually realising that this could be a very fun sport. And I obviously couldn't see the race, but it sounded proper enthralling.
Yeah, it is, and yeah, that commentator there, he loves his jumps race, and he gets right into it, and you'll hear him. He has nicknames for all the jockeys, and he it really sort of gets the crowd behind it, and it makes it a bit more interesting, I suppose. Makes a bit of a spectacle about it, but Warrnambool, it wasn't the same without the crowds, but it's still. It'll be back bigger and better than next year, but it was just great to be there.
In a weird way, not having the surge of the crowd and all that kind of stuff, you've got something far better. Like, that video is absolutely sensational.
Yeah, it was unbelievable. It went viral, really. But it's just it means a lot to have that support at home. When they're at the races, the support is the same. But when you see it on video, you realise how excited Lauren and the kids get about me getting the results, and it pushes you to make them proud, I suppose.
Because you never see that, really. Like, you don't. There's no circumstances where you kind of understand that it means a lot to them, and they get emotional when they see it for the first time afterwards. But like, you never actually get to see.
Yeah. No, you don't. People will tell you, but no, it's not till you see it like that you realise how emotional people can get.
And how you're part of a bigger, deeper thing. Like, that kind of, for me, the whole thing about sport is like, sports people have to be very selfish. You've got to go to bed early. You've got to mind yourself.
Right,
everything is around making sure that you're fit to go.
Yeah.
But
you have to be grumpy when you're losing weight, and be a pain in the backside to live with.
But then you get to understand that actually you're not doing it just for yourself, and it's not selfish. It's for them, and they're as emotionally invested as they are.
Yeah.
There's also, I suppose, Ger, we'll say that the horse that won the race there.
It's a beautiful thing. It's a really beautiful thing. Like, it's one of the most beautiful things that we can ever see. You should be so proud, Shane.
Yeah, no, it was great. Yeah.
I have a horse in a field for the summer that kind of, I suppose he would have maybe been in training a bit longer, but once racing was called off, he wasn't a summer jumper, so effectively he was sent out into the field, and he's a 12-year-old, but he's in a field with cattle and with horses. There are rabbits in one end of the field, there are crows flying overhead, there are all these animals, but in a nearby field, John Tuttle, who's a breeder, he has all these yearlings in it, and when I go over to see my horse, I can kind of pop into the field and see these yearlings, and to watch just over the last sort of couple of months, to watch their progress in terms of their character and in terms of their physicality, and the guy who comes in, then he feeds them every day, he loves them. The owner is obviously hoping to sell a couple of them on later on in the year. He will have had the dam of a lot of those yearlings, he will have had the mother of that dam. That horse then that he sells will go on to be a 2-year-old next year, will race for somebody else, and that horse then will have somebody looking after him in the yard, will have a trainer, will have a regular jockey, will have a work rider, will have a new owner. But this all goes back to the breeding of this horse and how it all began sort of 2-3 years ago at that stage. And the game is just so all-encompassing in terms of from the mating to the horse racing to the horse being retired, and maybe from the horse to the horse becoming a jumps horse from a flat horse, and then the wife of the jockey riding the horse and the kids absolutely cheering on at home. And I think in racing there's far more going on, and people need to appreciate that than just what's happening in the 2 minutes or so that the race is on.
Yeah, it's a magnificent industry, isn't it? It enthralls so many people, and there's so many connections that you mightn't even realise. And it's not till you win a big race like this, I suppose, then you get the feedback and the amount of people that you hear from. You realise, Jenny, it touches a lot of people, whether it be somebody that had something to do with this horse back in New Zealand before I won on him, and family at home, left, right, and centre, and it's a magnificent industry, and like I said, I just feel privileged to be a part of it all the time.
Oh, it's a really beautiful thing. So congratulations, Shane. You've been great with your time. I understand that you've got to go to bed early and get up early. Is that one of the differences?
That's a big protocol here. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I still people say, "Oh yeah, you get used to it," but no, it's a thing here. Track work, the track opens at 4 o'clock in the morning, so I'm up at 3:30. I work, so like I was saying, my job, apart from jumps riding, I'm assistant trainer to Lindsay Smith here in Warrnambool, with 50 horses in work, and so I'll be up at 3:30 in the morning, and I'll load up the truck and head into the track, and then just power through the horses, and we'll have them all worked probably by sort of 8:30, 9 o'clock, and then just a few loose ends and do up the work list for the morning, and sort of you finish work by 10 a.m. Very early starts, and it means very early to bed every night.
Well, listen, it is a remarkable life, and congratulations on making that move and doing so well when you get down there as well. It's been brilliant talking to you. Congratulations, Shane. Thanks.
No, thanks very much, lads, for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And Johnny, before we let you go, you're trying to raise some money for Darkness into Light and Pieta House this weekend. How are you doing?
Yeah, I actually saw an ad on TV the other night, and it was the father of a young man who died, and I didn't really realise the story behind the Darkness into Light, but this man was saying that he wanted to kind of do something, and his little Darkness into Light walk has now just spread across the world, and it was a beautiful thing. And I sort of said to myself, I've often wanted to do that walk, and through whatever laziness or whatever reason I haven't actually done it, and I said I'd love to do it this year, and of course it's not happening this year. So that's the planned walk tomorrow is instead being turned into a fundraiser where everyone who wants to support kind of gets up at dawn, sort of 5:30, and obviously the dawns have been absolutely stunning over the last sort of 5 weeks in Ireland. It's great if you can get up early, but tomorrow obviously would have extra resonance for Pieta House, and Pieta House, this fundraiser is as far as I know, it's the vast majority of the money that it raises all year, and obviously our mental health services are going to be under increasing duress going forward coming out of this because of the cataclysmic effect of that. So, my girlfriend runs the FAO millinery business and came up with a plan this week that she would make a hat, and a hat would entail probably about 2 days' work. The hats are worth about up to 340 quid. She would make a bespoke hat for somebody who entered into a little draw that she's going to run on her Instagram page on Sunday to basically raise money for Pieta House. And she initially put up a target of €1,000. That was reached actually within a few hours. She's put up her target to 2,500 now, and she's very close to reaching that. But, I suppose the hope would be that you would go beyond that. I've some of the hats here. I'm not going to model them because I want people to actually want to wear them. But there are 3 of them here. And
stick the blue one on. Come on. Stick the blue one on. That blue's your colour, baby blue.
I don't think it fits me though, to be fair, Ger. Anyway,
you get the big Irish head syndrome going on.
I do. This could be. I actually have a farmer's tan at the moment as well, which is great. But in any event, this could be. This could be one of these unisex hats. But there's a wide range on the website. You can get a headband or a hat. But I've actually been completely overwhelmed looking at it. The amount of anonymous donations, people who clearly can't even win the prize, but are just donating such that they can win or they can donate money to Pieta House. And Freya's mother as well said that she hopes she wins after her own donation, which I kind of said I'm not really sure we can arrange for the mother of the one organising it to win the prize. So will be a genuinely open draw on Sunday. But I have to say, I know it's very easy to kind of get down during the lockdown and moan about things, but it's nice to at least see that people, and we've seen this obviously with the Do It For Dan and with the various fundraisers for the frontline workers. There's an incredible amount of goodwill out there, and this kind of illustrates that as well. So, and I think Pieta House is a charity that's well worth donating to, and obviously we'd all appreciate any support.
Yeah, for sure. I noticed a lot of racing names as well had already donated, so you can get on and donate there.
There was just one other point here, if it's okay to make. I know racing, as I said earlier, racing isn't everyone's cup of tea, but people in racing there are great people in racing, and I'd like to just remind people of Pat Smullen's fundraiser last year, which was for research into pancreatic cancer, and this was obviously pan racing. It had nothing to do with racing per se. It was a fundraiser into looking for a cure for pancreatic cancer and looking for more testing and all that. Racing alone raised over $2.5 million for that. and that wasn't for racing. That was for the good of the world, and we should be very proud of the people we have in this sport, because we're not all about racing. We're proud people, and we know what matters ultimately as well.
Yeah, no, fair point, and for sure. A reminder as well, the Total Irish Injured Jockeys Fund receives another €100 donation this week to bring the total to €1,240. If hearing from Shane has piqued your interest, you can find Australian racing to bet on and live stream on the tote.com this weekend. And then from Monday, French racing will also return to the tote.com as racing behind closed doors resumes at Paris-Longchamp and other tracks. Is that French racing? I presume you can't be sending horses over to France at the moment, can you? Would we expect many Irish horses, or any at all?
No, and that's obviously going to be a major challenge in terms of flights for any people going to or from, because obviously the horses will need people with them, and I'm not. This isn't a political broadcast for Irish racing, but the fact that French racing is back so soon relative to our own projected return is obviously quite a cause for concern. And the pattern, the programme of racing, Ger, as well. The Irish Derby was due to happen on the 27th of June, and if it's the 29th of June, obviously the Irish Derby would fall before the planned return. So I hope it goes well for the French. They've returned in Germany yesterday, and the French, it will be a challenge. It's not like that it's straightforward, and France has been badly hit, but that is the plan for it to return. And obviously, with a slightly biased racing hat on, we're only hoping that everything goes smoothly for the Germans and the French, because just like everything else, we're looking at other nations to see, how the ease of the lockdown happens.
Yeah, all right, good stuff. It was a great week's Friday Night Racing. Shane Jackson was a great guest, and as he said, if that doesn't bring a tear to your glass eye, nothing will. If you want to get in touch, you can obviously use the hashtag, or just @OffTheBall is the Twitter handle. Every racing moment is the hashtag from HRI. Friday Night Racing on Off the Ball is brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie. We'll see you next week.
Friday Night Racing
on Off the Ball.
Brought to you by Horse Racing Ireland. Love every racing moment. Visit hri.ie.